My dad's retiring, so to celebrate, I'm taking our parents to France. Starting today, I'll be borrowing your platinum card for the trip. Time to live it up on your credit card. What trip?
What are you talking about?
Exactly what I said. No, I don't get what you mean by exactly what I said. Can you explain? We need to hurry. I'll tell you more when I get back. Sorry, I need to move on now. Oh, one more thing. The credit card you think I'm taking won't work. Huh. My unemployed husband Parker had taken my credit card without permission to fund a vacation with his parents. For years, I've endured Parker's irresponsible behavior, but this time felt like the perfect moment to take action. When Parker returns from this trip, he's going to face some harsh truths and serious consequences. Let me introduce myself. I'm Lila, a 32-year-old professional. After graduating from a prestigious university, I landed a solid job at a major corporation. Over the years, I've earned a reputation for being hardworking and dependable. My salary not only provides me a comfortable life, but also supports my husband, Parker, who has been unemployed for over a year. We've been married for 2 years, and while we've discussed having children, it hasn't happened yet. To be honest, the idea remains hypothetical for now, partly because Parker's lack of stability makes planning for a family feel impossible. With a good job and stable income, I should be content with my newlywed life, but the reality is far from that. The idea of having a child remains hypothetical, but Parker's unemployment is very real. I'm not hungry for dinner because I had some snacks earlier, Parker said nonchalantly. That's fine, but how's your job search going? I asked, trying to steer the conversation to something productive. I didn't go for an interview today. I just stayed home browsing job websites, he admitted without much remorse. Parker quit his job over a year ago and has been searching for work ever since. Technically, he's taken on a few part-time jobs during that time, but none of them last long. He starts a job, quits after a short while, takes a break, and then begins the cycle again. You're looking at part-time jobs again, aren't you? I asked, noticing a familiar pattern. I'm looking at both full-time and part-time positions, he said defensively. Why not focus on finding a full-time role? It might give you more stability, I suggested, trying to sound encouraging rather than critical. I know. But there's a right time for everything, he replied vaguely. I want Parker to find a steady job, but I understand there's a reason he resists being pushed too hard. He left his previous job after a dispute with his boss over workplace policies. His boss had a reputation for being particularly difficult, and Parker, supported by his colleagues, stood up to him as a representative for the team. However, when the situation escalated, Parker's co-workers switched sides, siding with the boss and leaving Parker to bear the brunt of the conflict alone. Feeling betrayed by his peers and no longer supported by his boss, Parker found it impossible to stay at the company and ultimately decided to quit. Parker, dinner's ready. Can you bring it here? I called out, hoping to get a response from him. After Parker quit his job, he became reclusive, spending days in his room without speaking much. However, after about 2 weeks, he slowly began coming out of his shell, starting with small contributions around the house. I'll do the dishes, he offered one evening. Really? Thanks, I said, genuinely surprised but glad he was taking some initiative. Then it's all yours, he said, handing over the sponge with a slight smile. Yeah, I've got nothing but time, he joked, though his smile didn't seem entirely genuine. Despite this initial progress, it took another 2 weeks before Parker started actively job hunting. I have an interview today, he announced one morning. Is it your top choice? I asked, trying to encourage him. Yeah, I'm going to get this job and start over, he replied with determination. I'm rooting for you. Do your best, I said, truly hoping this would mark a turning point. For the next month, Parker actively applied for jobs and attended interviews. Unfortunately, even with his renewed efforts, he wasn't having much luck. Why am I always rejected? Damn it. It's all my previous company's fault. He fumed after returning from yet another unsuccessful interview. Don't get frustrated. You'll find something good eventually, I reassured him. Of course, I'm frustrated. I did nothing wrong, and yet I'm the one paying the price, he exclaimed, his anger bubbling to the surface. I knew Parker wasn't entirely to blame for what happened at his last job, but I also understood that quitting because of interpersonal conflicts didn't look good to potential employers. "It's like I can't do anything right anymore," he muttered, his tone filled with defeat. "That's not true. You have another interview tomorrow. Let's work on your resume tonight," I suggested, trying to encourage him to keep going. "It's pointless. I'm not going tomorrow," he said abruptly, shutting down the conversation. The repeated rejections had clearly worn him down. Over time, his frustration turned into defiance. One day, I came home to find torn-up resumes scattered across the living room floor. Knowing the interview he'd had earlier hadn't gone well, I chose my words carefully to avoid making things worse. "Can you throw that trash in the bin?" I asked, my tone as neutral as possible. Parker looked up at me, his expression a mix of anger and resignation. "I'm done," he declared. "Done with what?" I asked, already dreading his answer. "Job hunting. We can live on your income, right? I don't need to work." I stared at him, unsure of how to respond. "Can you throw that trash in the bin?" I asked, gesturing to the torn-up resumes scattered on the floor. "I'm done," Parker said flatly. "Done with what?" I asked, although I already had a sinking feeling about his answer. "Job hunting. We can live on your income, right? I don't need to work," he said without hesitation. It was true we could survive on my income alone. But Parker wasn't stepping up to take on any meaningful responsibilities at home like a full-time homemaker might. Instead, he was simply avoiding reality. I understood that his past experiences had left him disheartened, and I wanted to give him some space to recover, so I decided to be patient. "Parker, you still haven't found a job. What's your plan?" I asked a few weeks later, trying to nudge him gently. "I've worked hard before. This is just an extended break. I'm not just resting, I'm studying for the future," he replied confidently. "That's good to hear," I said, choosing not to push further. Since we lived near my in-laws, Parker's parents, Mila and Nicholas, began visiting us more frequently after he quit his job. They seemed concerned about him, and when Parker told them he was preparing for his next career move, they appeared reassured. Of course, I knew this was far from the truth. "The beer will run out today. Can you buy some on your way home?" Parker asked me one day. "It's running out again? You drink too much. Try to cut down a bit," I replied, frustrated.
Fine.
"I won't ask you again. I'll buy it myself," he snapped. In reality, Parker wasn't studying or searching for a job. Most days, he just sat around watching TV and drinking beer. I realized he was hiding the truth about his unemployment from others, including his parents, but I didn't have the heart to expose him. Instead, I kept quiet, hoping he would find his way back to being productive. However, as the weeks turned into months, Parker still showed no intention of job hunting. By the 3-month mark, my patience had worn thin. "Parker, maybe it's time to start looking for work again. You seem more settled now," I said one evening, trying to sound encouraging.
What?
"It's been less than half a year since the incident at my last job. You want me to work again after everything that happened?" He responded defensively. "I just thought the break was a bit long," I said carefully. "Stop nagging. You can't understand my feelings since your job is going well. I have my own struggles, you know," he shot back, clearly irritated. "Everyone has work problems and relationship issues, Parker. We all try to solve them. Let's work through this together," I said, trying to ease the tension. "I get it. I'll look for a job, okay?" he finally said, before walking out of the room abruptly. I could tell my words had upset him, but at least he had agreed to start searching again. To me, it felt like progress, even if it was small. I decided to apologize when he seemed more at ease, hoping we could move forward together. "I got a job because of your nagging," Parker announced with a hint of reluctance. "That's great. Where did you find one?" I asked, genuinely hopeful. "At a nearby supermarket," he replied nonchalantly. "So, you'll need to learn and work hard, right?" "It's just part-time." "No need to work too hard," he shrugged, dismissing the effort it might take. "Part-time or not, even part-time is a job. Do you have a problem with that?" I pressed, trying to encourage him to take it seriously. I wanted to push him further, but I held back. Maybe even a small step like this could be the beginning of his recovery. I decided to wait and see how things would progress. One evening, Parker came home from work. "I'm home," he said casually. "Parker, you're back. How's the job?" I asked, eager for some positive news. "I quit this supermarket part-time," he said without a shred of remorse.
Why?
"It hasn't even been that long," I asked, confused and frustrated. A college student there was being bossy, telling me to always put the vegetable boxes at the bottom in storage. It felt like harassment, he complained. I knew that the student was probably just showing him the ropes, as even college students can be seniors in the workplace. But Parker took it as a personal slight, using it as yet another excuse to leave. This wasn't new. Over time, Parker had shown a pattern of starting and quitting jobs without much commitment. He'd work for a short while, find some reason to leave, and start the cycle again. "Parker, what job are you doing now?" I asked one day, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. "I'm working part-time at a pub. I've never worked in food and beverage before, but it's interesting." "I think I've finally found my calling," he said with what seemed like newfound enthusiasm. "Really? That's great. But isn't the income from a part-time job in a restaurant pretty low?" I asked cautiously. "That's fine. I'm currently apprenticing, aiming to go independent." "So, you plan to own your place someday?"
Exactly.
"The income's small now, but I'm working hard for my goal," he said confidently. "Then take this," I said, handing him some extra money. "Treat yourself to something nice for once." But Parker's words were, once again, all for show. While he boasted about his ambition to his parents and me, he quit the pub job just 3 days later. To make matters worse, he began lying about his situation and even taking money from his parents under the guise of needing funds for his career goals. As always, Parker's actions spoke louder than his words, and they painted a clear picture of someone unwilling to take responsibility for his life. This time, I couldn't hold back my disappointment in Parker. I decided to take a firmer approach. "Hey, Parker. Later, please. I'm at a good part in the movie," he responded without even looking at me. "You can pause it," I said, picking up the remote and pausing the movie myself. "It's just pressing when you pause at the best part." "What is it?" he asked, clearly annoyed. "Parker, you're 35, right? That's prime working age. Don't you think about the future? Spending all day at home, drinking, and just watching TV isn't going to get you anywhere." "The future? There are plenty of 35-year-olds not working," he said defensively. "Not working? Sure, but those people have something meaningful they're dedicated to. Do you have something like that?"
Yeah.
"You're upset about me not working. Fine, I'll look for another part-time job," he said dismissively, brushing me off. It was clear that Parker wasn't ready to make a serious change. His fixation on part-time jobs and lack of ambition had become a recurring issue. Despite being cautious not to hurt his feelings, I knew it was time for Parker to face reality and bounce back. A few days later, while I was at work, I received a text from Parker. "Dad's retiring, so we're going to France to celebrate. Starting today, I'm borrowing your platinum card. Got to splurge on your credit card." I froze.
What?
Immediately, I called him. "What do you mean, a trip?" "Just what I said," he replied casually. "I don't get it." "Just what I said? Explain yourself." He ignored my frustration and acted as if everything was fine. The situation was absurd. While it's reasonable to celebrate Nicholas's retirement, Parker had crossed the line by using my money without asking. Worse, I wasn't even included in the trip. Parker was likely bragging to his parents, pretending the funds came from his savings, when in reality, he had stolen my credit card. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. "You said you borrowed a credit card? The one from our house?"
Yeah. Why?
"I had a platinum card, but it was safely in my wallet." "So you took the credit card from home?" "Yeah, so I'm counting on you for the payment," he said smugly, oblivious to how furious I was. But Parker was in for a surprise. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. "What are you doing?" "We need to go." I heard someone call to him in the background. "Got it. I'm coming," Parker replied. "Sorry, Lila, I have to move on now. We'll talk later." "Just one more thing. The credit card you took won't work.
What?
That can't be right. It's in your name, and the expiry date is this month. It should still work. You're lying to stop me from using it, aren't you? No, I'm not. The card expires this month, which is why I've already received a new one. When the new card is activated, the old one stops working. I've already activated the new card. You're kidding, right? You can try using it if you don't believe me. It might be amusing to see you attempt to pay with a card that doesn't work. This credit card really won't work? I heard his parents calling him again, urging him to hurry. But Parker sounded panicked now. What should I do? I told them I'd pay for everything except the round-trip travel. Oh, so they covered the flights.
Yes.
Dad felt bad about having me pay for everything. And you have no money for the rest?
No.
I'm about to take a cab, and I don't even have money for that. Not my problem. You said you'd cover the trip. If you can't pay, that's on you. You shouldn't have used my card in the first place. How can I? I don't have any money.
Right.
And you haven't been working seriously either. It's your fault for trying to look good by taking your parents on a trip you can't afford. Anyway, I'm at work. I just wanted to let you know about the card. Wait. I hung up, returning to my tasks. Parker was about to face the reality of his situation and his lies on his own. Later that night, I got a call from Mila. I heard from Parker. He tried to pay with your credit card and lied about having a job. I'm so sorry for the trouble, she said apologetically. Don't apologize, Mila. It's not your fault. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. We'll cover the trip's costs when we get back. I'll make Parker apologize and find a job immediately. Mila, I appreciate that, but I've been considering divorcing Parker. Divorce? Because of this? She asked, clearly shocked. This is just part of it. Parker has been taking money from me for a while. What do you mean? I stopped giving Parker money to curb his drinking. He started a part-time job and used his salary to buy alcohol, but it wasn't enough. He began stealing small amounts from my wallet, $4, $10, sometimes $40. Over the course of a year, it added up to a significant amount. Mila was silent, processing what I had told her. I hoped Parker would turn things around, but when he stole my credit card for this trip, it became clear he wasn't going to change. This wasn't just $40 anymore. It was a leap that proved he had no intention of improving. I understand. Should I tell Parker about the divorce? Just let him know I want a divorce. We'll discuss the rest when he's back. The next day, Parker called, likely having heard the news from Mila. I ignored his calls, too drained to talk. When I returned home from work, Parker was already there, having cut his trip short. I'll work properly now. Please don't leave me, he begged, his voice trembling. I sighed, seeing the regret in his eyes. But his apologies were too little, too late. He'd had countless chances to change and squandered them all. I'm not giving you another chance, Parker. My mind is made up. Can you at least let me stay here? If you can afford the rent, I replied bluntly. He fell silent, realizing he had nowhere to go. Moments later, he packed his things and left, likely heading to his parents' house. Mila later called to tell me they only let Parker stay one night before asking him to leave, hoping it would force him to take responsibility for his life. Parker came back to plead with me again. Please, Lila. I've got nowhere to go and no money. That's your problem. You've had every opportunity to turn things around, and you wasted them. You need to deal with the consequences of your actions, I said, refusing to let him back in. The divorce went through soon after, with his parents supporting the decision. Since then, I haven't heard much about Parker, but I assume he's still making excuses for his situation. As for me, I've felt nothing but relief. I no longer feel the burden of constantly accommodating Parker's failures. My life has become calmer and more fulfilling. I'm grateful I made the choice to prioritize my own well-being.